Welcome to the Scott and Brandon Show, a show where we entertain the pressing biblical, social, and political issues of today. My name is Scott Jackson, and this is my co-host, Brandon Ulmer. Our aim is to have open conversations about serious topics and to build up the body of Christ in the process. If you're interested in theology, applying scriptural principles to our daily lives, or political and social issues as they relate to Christianity, you'll definitely want to tune in. This is the Scott and Brandon Show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Scott and Brandon Show. I'm Scott, and I'm joined by my co-host today, Brandon. And today's the day that we've all been waiting for, the day that we've been talking about for probably the last 2 months, the entire life of this podcast so far.
The day that election Paul is going to win.
No, don't say that. Your comment offends my hat. Yeah, if you can't tell, you probably know who.
Garbage.
I'm garbage. Yeah, I am garbage, and I'm proud to be garbage. If you can't tell, you probably should know who I'm voting for. I've actually already voted, like a true Republican. I voted early.
A true Republican. No. You're just a smart Republican.
Oh, yeah.
Because you know the lines are going to be ridiculously long today.
Dude, I had some family members that were voting yesterday at the Board of Elections in their respective counties. And so I live in Ohio, so both Butler County and Montgomery County, the Board of Elections, the line was so long you could not see the building from the end of it.
That is crazy.
And I'm pretty sure like my cousin in Montgomery County waited, I want to say 3 or 4 hours to vote. It was nuts. It was nuts. I had some siblings vote yesterday in Butler County, and it was, they waited for a couple hours. It took them a long time to get in and vote. Yeah. So it's people are getting out there. People are showing up this year. I just hope Republicans show up in a higher amount. So it'll be interesting to see how all that shakes out. You know, we've had some early voting data come back, and it's been pretty interesting. But
well, the one traditional small town in New Hampshire that opens their voting at midnight, right? The town consists of 6 people. It's been a news tradition every 4 years. Everyone wants to know, how does the town vote? The town was split in half.
Really?
3 for Trump, 3 for Harris. So
interesting.
That was interesting because a lot of people like to see how that town votes and to see if that determines the projection of the race. And I think it does. I think with a small town of 6 people and it's split right down the middle, that just shows you what today is going to be like. It is going to be a neck all day long.
We've got razor thin margins right now. Excuse me. It's a toss up in every sense of the word. It's funny you mentioned New Hampshire. I actually saw a poll recently that Trump is in the lead slightly in New Hampshire as a state. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
See how it all shakes out. So obviously today's election day. People are going to get out and vote. People should get out and vote. If you haven't voted, go ahead and vote. And this election truly is going to be one of the most consequential elections in modern history. There is a lot at stake at the moment. The ideologies between the two candidacies could not be any farther apart. You have Trump and the Republicans who are being very inclusive. You know, that's not a word typically associated with the Republican Party. But they're bringing in people like Tulsi Gabbard, who recently converted to the Republican Party. They're bringing in people like RFK Jr. They're bringing in people like Elon Musk. All of these are traditionally
leftists.
Yeah, leftists. They're voting on the left side of the aisle. You know, Tulsi Gabbard was a presidential candidate for the Democratic Party, and she got ousted from the party because of some views that she had.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then you have the other party, the Democratic Party, who all they want is more foreign wars. They want more big corporations, and they are the party of the rich elite.
They want more of your money.
They want more of your money. So, and I thought it was funny that, you know, RFK Jr. has talked about this a few times, but I think he said in 2016 16, some previous election, can't remember which one, but that the Republican Party accounted for 70% of the wealth of the country, and the Democratic Party accounted for 30% of the wealth of the country as far as the voter base. And this election, it has flipped. So the Democratic Party accounts for about 70% of the wealth in the country, and the Republican Party accounts for about 30%, which the Republican Party has really made strides, and they've made it a point to be the party for the working class, which traditionally has been the Democratic Party. That's been the party of Bill Clinton. That's been the party of JFK. And they've been the party of the working people, which is why union members and everything have been so heavily for the Democratic candidate for years and years and years at this point. But now that's starting to change. And I find that very, very interesting. It's, as a Republican, I've been a Republican my whole life. I'm very pleased with where I see the party going right now. I do think they're making a good effort to push for free speech, and also look at, being willing to accept other viewpoints, whether they agree with them or not. So you don't necessarily have to agree with everything RFK says, but you can at least acknowledge that he has, one, a right to think how he wants to think, and two, that he also doesn't agree with everything you do, and he's okay with that.
Yeah.
Right? So, and I think that's true across the board.
That's how America is supposed to be.
Exactly.
We don't have to hate each other just because you disagree, right? I disagree with a lot of things on the left, but could I be a friend with someone who has a leftist ideology? Yeah. Obviously, probably the friendship wouldn't last, and that's not because of me. It's going to be because of the leftist, right?
Yeah.
So, no, today's a big day. It's... I don't even know what to even think at this point. I think, I'm not. I mean, let me ask, how are you feeling about that? What are you feeling? Are you nervous? Are you?
It's kind of like
anxious?
Excited apprehension, you know.
Yeah, that's a good phrase.
Well, we all felt relatively confident in 2020 about Trump's chances of winning again, but I do think this election's different in that we've seen already what a Trump administration looks like, and we've seen what a Harris administration would look like, because she's been a part of the current administration for the last 4 years.
Could this be, from a Christian perspective here, because we read in Scripture, especially in the Old Testament, right? And kings would rise. You had the evil king, and then you had the good king. And God's like, you see what happens when you choose the evil king, right? You see what happens when you walk away from my statutes, from my commands, and it does not go well for you, because I've said this. You disobey me, I'm going to bring curses upon you, right? Do we have, from just a Christian perspective here, a direction being laid before us that we can choose, right? The direction that we know where the nation should go. Not saying Trump is, God's sovereign hero, right? I don't believe that. But there is a clear distinction between Trump as far as morality goes, right? And the direction as a nation that this should go, that's in line with the Constitution and everything that we hold dear, versus Kamala, who is really going to be the spitting image, if not worse, of the Biden administration, because that is what she is.
Yeah. Kamala's campaign is going to be exactly what she said it was going to be when she was running in 2020. It's going to be a radical left campaign, and I don't really think there's any question about that. But to your question,
is God laying before us a decision as a nation? And then he's like, all right, I'm going to give you what you want. And we do end up getting Kamala, right? Not again, and then it's no reason that we need to fear or anything like that, because God is on the throne, obviously. But is this a turning point? Is this a those when you study history and you look at those significant events that okay, that changed the direction of history right there, the course of history, right? Is this election, is November 5th, 2024 a turning point in world history?
I think so.
You think so?
I think we have two choices before us. I think we have the choice between a candidate who wants us to be in multiple wars at the same time. And let's not get it twisted. Like, my opinion is that Kamala Harris will start World War III. That will happen. She was supposed to preside over the conflict that was brewing between Russia and Ukraine, and then Russia and Ukraine went to war.
Mm-hmm. Now, not forget about Israel and
Israel and Gaza. Yeah, that whole thing happened. Yep.
Have you seen the latest news on that? What's going on?
I haven't been keeping up with it.
Man, I'm surprised nothing has happened yet, but intelligence was being reported that Iran was going to do an attack unlike anything else.
Oh, wow.
In retaliation. And the United States has had to beef up its display of power and authority in the region.
Yeah.
And this has just been the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
We're still expecting an attack with, as they're saying, stronger warheads than what they've used before.
Yeah.
So things are not looking good over there.
No, and this is all under it's basically a precursor to a Harris administration right now. But as far as today's election day changing the course of history, I do think America has the choice between two paths through history. We can have a path either through Trump, which would presumably lead to more stability, more peace, less war, show of strength. I believe, when Trump was in office the first time, he rebuilt our military, obviously increased our strength a lot, increased our standing on the world stage. There's no reason to believe that America can't still be the presiding superpower in the globe. And I think Trump values traditional American values, which is being the world leader in freedom, being the world leader in peace. And those are all things that he did when he was in office. And Harris, on the other hand, she is just so grossly incompetent. It's almost embarrassing. If she gets in office, we are going to have, like we do now, a president that is laughable. The other world leaders are not going to take her seriously at all.
No,
at all.
No.
And I'm not even talking about like the big, mean ones like Putin or Xi Jinping or Kim Jong-un. I'm talking about just world leaders in general, right? The European leaders. Vladimir Zelensky is going to be able to just have an endless cash cow in the United States.
Yeah.
And he's going to be able to do whatever he wants with all of that money. And excuse me. I do think there are two very stark choices to be made. And whichever choice is made is going to set the tone for the rest of American history. Because some other things that we have to take into consideration, not just on a geopolitical standpoint, but even in our own domestic politics. If the Democrats win the presidency and the House and the Senate today, there's lots of things that are fundamentally going to change about our republic. They're going to add 2 states to the Union in Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., so they can solidify a permanently Democrat-run Senate, because they'll get presumably four new Democratic senators, 2 from D.C., 2 from Puerto Rico. Those are 2 very liberal locations. They want to pack the Supreme Court with more liberal justices, and they want to get rid of the filibuster. All of this has been openly said. This is not speculation. This is not, MAGA conspiracy. This is the reason why Kamala Harris keeps her stances so ambiguous is because these are her stances, and they come out every now and again. Tim Walz is on board with this. Kamala Harris is on board with this. The entire left is on board with this. And I truly feel like America has the choice today between 2 paths, and we will be 2 very different countries because of it.
Yes. And so do we hope and pray that Trump wins and delays. Because honestly, 2028 is going to be a big election. How do you replace Trump? Who will replace Trump?
I think Vance is the...
Vance will be the ticket, but that's going to be dependent and contingent upon how well he does as a VP. Now, I think he will perform very well, but then again, you never know. You never know, right? There's 4 years between now and then. But does Vance embody Trumpism?
Yeah.
Right? Because Trump is more than just a man. It is a movement. It is an ideology.
Yeah, Trump truly has shifted the Republican Party.
He has.
And the MAGA movement is more than just Trump.
Yeah. And so Trumpism will forever be part of American politics.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Even 20 years from now, Trumpism, right? Politicians will have as part of their mantra, whatever the case is, to link back to Trump and the Trump era, right? So Trump has forever changed American politics, and which is amazing because when you look at politicians throughout American history, who has done such things? Abraham Lincoln was one of them, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very first Republican president, and changed the direction of the party, right? Anti-slavery.
Yeah.
That was a huge thing because the Democrats were for slavery, right?
Yeah, we can't talk about that, Brandon.
No, we can't talk about that. And they don't want to talk about that.
No.
I thought Republicans were the slave party. No, it wasn't. It was the Democrat Party. They were advocating for slavery and wanted to keep it.
So, Brandon, anyway. I'll throw your question back at you. Do you think the election today is choosing between two different realities for the country?
So I've thought about this often. And like I said, I'm not one of those that Trump is God's only man type voters right now.
I would agree. Yep.
Because God can use anybody, honestly. Is Trump a significant player? Oh, by all means, yes. So you would be foolish and stupid enough to say that he's not. He certainly is. Is he God's chosen man? No, he's not God's chosen man. But is he the right man for the job right now? Yes, I certainly believe so. He is.
Mm-hmm.
And so do we have a choice before us? As I study Scripture, and like I said, I studied how in the Old Testament the path was laid before the Jewish people, and the Jewish people had to decide: choose you this day whom you will serve. Will be your fathers, right? As your fathers have done, or are you going to be like everybody else and follow a pagan ideology? And I'm just paraphrasing it, what Scripture is saying. And the Jewish people struggled. And when they chose poorly and they chose wrong, right, they chose to not follow the way of Scripture, right, as God has mandated them to do, the Torah and so forth there.
Yeah.
It did not go well. Now, obviously, we are not a theocracy. And I think that because we're not a theocracy, somewhat that might be our saving grace. But nevertheless, we are a republic that did choose and acknowledge God and founded this nation upon Judeo-Christian principles.
Yeah.
And because we did acknowledge God, I do believe today that we have a path laid before us. And the decision that will be made today will determine, yes, the direction in the future of this nation.
Yeah.
And whether that is as a nation we will prosper and be continually the military might in the world.
Yeah.
Or we will begin seeing as Rome saw its early stages of its decline from its borders being constantly attacked by people trying to get in, the economic issues that the Roman Empire was facing, it began to crumble on itself fast and quick, and to totally then disappear.
Big reason for that, funny enough, was the popularization of what we would consider LGBTQ ideology. So that lifestyle was very, very popular in the fall of Rome.
Yes.
I don't think that's a coincidence.
Towards its end, it was.
Towards its end, it was very popular, and I it's hard to look at that. It's hard to look at Rome and see that ideology popping up in the downfall of its society.
Yes.
And then now look at America and see where we're at after this ideology has reared its head.
I would say that was not its obviously reason for its
I don't think that was the cause.
It was an outcome. It was a result because it was already experiencing so much issues already from its border issues, right? Mm-hmm. Its economic issues, and that because of and all these other issues that were popping up, that when you start ignoring these other major issues that are causing issues for your nation, right? Then you start putting aside other things because that's not a big deal, whatever, and morality starts to slip by the wayside, right? It's just as when you study the book of Proverbs, what does Solomon continually tell us? And again, I'm just going to paraphrase here, right? But you stay on the straight and narrow path. If you go to the left, you go to the right, destruction awaits, right? And we look at our nation today here in America, we have a border issue, we have economic issues, right? Although I will say, our gas station right down the street is $2.66 a gallon.
Man, it's cheaper than it is here.
Yeah. So
I think it's like $3.13 here.
Yeah. And I was like, whoa, thank you, Kamala. Anyways. But going back to it, when you start not doing what you're supposed to do as a nation, then you start letting other things slide, right? Your morality, your principles, your values, whatever those cases, and they start to go to the wayside. And then we see that with the Jewish people in the Old Testament, right? Because they were not doing what they were supposed to be doing as far as justices goes, following the Lord, performing their sacrifices, taking care of the widows and the orphans, because they were letting those things go, right? Their morality also declined, and then God issued a judgment. And so, yes, I think we are at a crossroad today. Do I think we need to fear? By all means, no, because God is also on our side. But does that mean, as Christians, we will not experience the effects of God's judgment upon this nation?
Yep.
Right? Because God will judge. God's very clear. He will judge every single nation. The heart of the king is in the palm of his hands, as he says. Right? And so today, yes, we could be getting, I would say, either 4 more years of grace, or we're about to get 4 years of just unlike anything we've ever seen. I'm not saying we would be judged in that 4 years, but I think
life is certainly going to be a lot worse than it is now. It's
going to change. Yeah, it is going to be a huge impact, spiritual impact. And, and I have buddies that said, and I agree that if Kamala wins, right, just like any other presidential debate, history and election cycle we've had, America continues. And that is certainly true, right?
America as we know it will fundamentally change.
But I think the bigger thing here is, yes, it is going to initiate and bring in a wave of things that are very anti-God,
mm-hmm.
anti-Bible, and also anti-American, mm-hmm. honestly, or anti-Constitution, at least I will say, right? Those will be coming in, and that will just be the first wave of changes and effects. that we're going to experience.
Yeah, a Harris candidacy would, or a presidency rather, would fundamentally change the republic for the foreseeable future. Democrats would almost solidify their power for the next 30 to 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
And if that happens, then we pray and we move forward and we continue to perpetuate Christian values and we continue to spread the gospel. Christianity has a tendency to prosper under persecution for whatever reason. So, and not saying that, I'm not throwing accusations, but I don't think a Harris presidency would be friendly to Christians. I'll just put it that way.
No, the Constitution would be our saving grace at this point.
If it's still around.
Well,
I don't think the Constitution is
going to disappear in her 4 years.
I don't think it'll disappear, but the Constitution as we know it, I do think the likelihood, because you got to look at how the left looks at the Constitution. They look at it as a living document that needs to be changed every few years to keep up with the times.
Mm-hmm.
The right doesn't view it that way. I don't view the Constitution that way. The Constitution was written the way it was written, and we need to follow it the way it was written. But the left doesn't view it that way. They view it as, well, LGBTQ needs to be included, and well, those Christian values that you had, they're pretty old school. Like we don't need to do that. The likelihood of fundamental changes to the Constitution, mainly the Bill of Rights, because look, let alone freedom of religion, they don't like your freedom of free speech either.
No,
they don't want you to have that either.
They do not.
So free speech and religion are included in the same amendment. They're both in the First Amendment. And I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for them to want to rewrite that amendment at the very least.
Well, I mean, you look at, and I didn't get to see the whole clip, but Elon Musk is on talking to Joe Rogan about the future of X under a Harris presidency. I didn't get to see the whole thing, but he's concerned, right? And obviously he's not advocating for, religion or anything. He's advocating for free speech. So if a guy who's, I don't think Elon's a Christian.
He's agnostic at best.
Yeah. And, but if he's worried who's an agnostic, if that's what he is, whatever it is, but if he's worried who is a non-believer, if he is worried about the future of free speech, how much more as Christians do we need to be concerned about free speech under a Harris presidency? Because, they will definitely reclassify it as disinformation, misinformation.
Yeah.
Or even hate speech. And honestly, at the point, if Harris even wins, I'd probably be done doing this podcast, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it would be, it would certainly be difficult. I do think a Harris administration would crack down. Obviously, we're not huge. We're not as big as some of the other conservative Christian podcasts out there, but
it just takes one person listening to an episode to go viral and like, oh, we've gone viral, we've hit the big times, right? Which would
we need to have Cody back on because we had a crap ton of listeners when Cody was on.
Oh yeah, we need to bring him back, man. And well, that's what I think
said.
If Harris wins, right? I said I'll be done, and he can replace me. I know. That'll be he'll have a field day with that.
Oh man, yeah, he'll love that one.
Maybe we can summon him and he'll magically pop on this episode.
We'll just say his name 3 times and
Cody.
No, he wouldn't be on this episode. He'd pop in and see my hat and leave.
Oh man,
Cody, we know you're listening and we love you, brother, but we're just giving you a hard time. Oh man. No, we'll have to have him back on when we're talking about more theology. But and really, truly, like as far as this podcast is concerned, I think that was the heart that was behind the podcast. It's just we started it in the middle of a very heated election cycle, and a lot of what we want to talk about is current events and how they relate to Christianity. So, we've been very preoccupied with the election. So hopefully after this week, there'll be a lot less political talk and more theological and Christian-based conversation. But we do try to turn all of it towards a Christian worldview. And that brings me to, I guess, kind of the next point before we dive into how some of the polls are looking is just like we discussed about how the country has a choice today between two different realities. Christians have a choice, I think, that is easier to make than any other election in the past. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, if you vote for Kamala Harris, you've lost your salvation. I'm not going to tell you that. I am going to say, and I do maintain the opinion, that it does not make logical or biblical sense for a Christian to vote for Harris. I don't think there is sufficient evidence to support a Christian voting for Kamala Harris and truly being able to stay true to biblical values. And I know that's a statement where people kind of curl their toes at, and they don't like to hear stuff like that because it's uncomfortable to say that a Christian can or cannot do something. I'm not saying this is going to put your salvation in jeopardy. I am saying, as a Christian, there is a responsibility to certain biblical values, and one of those is life. You cannot be a Christian and support the killing of infants. You just, that is just unconscionable. And Kamala Harris, more so than any other Democratic candidate in the past, is standing on the platform of abortion. That is what she's running on. That is her appeal to American women, is that you should have the right to kill your infant for convenience, right? So, as a Christian, and Brandon, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. We've talked about it a little bit in the past. Do you think the choice between the two candidates is maybe a little bit easier this time than it has been traditionally?
I would say yes. You do have a far left radicalist, although she says she's not. She's very clearly is, right? I think I just saw it's been 107 days since she's done actually a real press conference. She's had these ones in little toozy moments here with reporters. Yeah. Why? It's because she can control the outcome of it as much as she can, right? And it's because she cannot divulge her true. And even Bernie Sanders said she's lying in order to. She's got to
flat out said she was lying to win the election.
Yeah, to win the election, she's got to do what she's got to do, right? So. And so what's the question? My mind just went blank again.
No, you're good. Do you think the choice between the two candidates is easier for Christians this time around? Yes, there's the choice between the two.
Yes, I would say yes. Right? And unless you want far left radical ideals, right? And then you have Trump, who's on the one side. Is he a perfect candidate? No. By no means, no. He's not a perfect candidate. And the thing with Trump is, there's things you agree with maybe on Trump and everything. No, there's stuff I don't entirely always agree with him on entirely. But, when you look at a guy who wants to uphold the Constitution and not rewrite it or reinterpret it as the far left does, right? With disinformation and, you can't say that, even though I have free speech to say it. Instead, they're going to slap you either with a hate crime or disinformation, whatever the case is. They say that is wrong. The choice is very clear, for me at least.
Yeah.
That Trump is the ideal candidate who's going to uphold the Constitution. And for a guy who wants to end as quickly as possible 2 wars that are right now, if these 2 wars do not end, the only outcome of these 2 wars
is World War III.
Yep. It is the only outcome. We have North Korean troops that has been confirmed. We have not been confirmed.
They're fighting in the Russian-Ukraine conflict.
Well, I haven't seen anything if they've been confirmed if they're fighting. They are there.
They're there.
They have not actually have confirmation that they are actually now on the front lines fighting.
Yeah, and this alliance between Russia and North Korea, I think, needs more attention than it's being given.
Yes.
I think we look at North Korea as kind of like the angry toddler over there in the East because they can't really do a whole lot. They don't have like long-range nuclear weapons, but I don't think they need to be messed with. I mean, Donald Trump took them very seriously when he was in office.
He did.
And I think they need to be treated seriously. And this alliance between Russia and North Korea, it's only a matter of time before China gets involved.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got something resembling the Axis powers again. So,
and then obviously the issue in the Middle East now between Israel and Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
yeah, now it's not a proxy war.
It's not.
We've got a war between Israel and Iran.
And we've had it. They've already exchanged missiles at each other. And Iran is, based upon the latest threat and assessment and analysis, Iran is expected, they were supposed to do something before the election. Obviously has not occurred yet. And that's, I'm going to say, due to, either some internal things that are going on behind the scenes, obviously we're not privy to, but also American firepower that has been, they're doing shows of force all throughout the region.
Yeah.
And pressuring Iran, do not do anything. Right? This is extremely volatile and extremely unstable right now.
Yeah, and I think a Kamala Harris victory would almost solidify
there's nothing left to fear.
Aggressions over there. Yeah, there's nothing left to be intimidated by. Because then at that point, America has become a paper tiger, right? We've got the front of something intimidating, but we're not actually going to do anything.
Yes.
And I think I really do think the world is watching to see who's going to win because China wants to invade Taiwan, right? Iran is wanting to fire back on Israel.
Oh.
And we've got the whole Russia-Ukraine thing happening.
Well, I saw an interesting, and I didn't confirm the authenticity of it, but I didn't really have any reason to doubt it. It was I guess, there's some spectator attending some rally in England. And it was interesting because it was a rally for Trump. And all these British people, for those that are British listeners, you guys are awesome. But it was interesting, in this rally, you had the guy, again, these are all British, and he's up on the stage and he is saying, Americans, this election is bigger than you. It is bigger than you realize, but we need Trump.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very fascinating and a very profound statement. And I couldn't agree more with the guy. All right. And the British see it. The other European nations see it.
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, we've had other European nations say, we need Trump. Trump is the guy who will solve this issue between Russia and Ukraine. He is the guy. And Trump said himself, and we don't even know how he's going to do it, but if he is elected president-elect, which we will know in 24 hours if he is.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We might know in 3 to 5 business days.
Oh, maybe. He will call President Vladimir Putin up.
Yeah.
And Zelensky. He's like, imagine that phone call. Hey, you guys already know I'm about to be in president again. 47th president next month or January.
Yep.
It's time to end this.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, Trump's made it very clear as to what he's going to do, So, yeah, World War III is obviously brewing. And I think the world is watching. And I think to your point, you brought up that British rally that you mentioned. I think that's right. I think Trump was believe it or not, a stabilizing character on the world stage.
Mm-hmm.
Because he reinstituted America as the world superpower. And I think the world likes that. I think having America as the stabilizing superpower is a good thing. Having a country that's able to intimidate countries like Russia and Iran is a good thing. And it's also going to come down to, if Kamala Harris gets in, I don't think the United States wins another war. if Donald Trump gets in.
Let's look at, we haven't won a war.
No.
Since World War II? No, well, the Gulf War. Give it that, but it's only 2 months. I mean, we didn't win anything on the global war on terror.
No.
Because terror's still going. It's still going on.
Well, we lost the conflict in Afghanistan when we pulled out the way we did.
That was horrific what happened.
I mean, the Taliban themselves counts that as a victory.
Yes.
Which is just a spit in the face to all the people that served over there.
Yeah. And I mean, we all know, we've all seen, it's all been verified. Trump wanted to end the war in Afghanistan, which is good, which it needed to be.
Which is fine. Yeah, it needed to end.
Biden, obviously, yes, he was correct that Afghanistan needed to end. He just went about it wrong. Where Trump, I believe it was, he said, we want to end this. Do not harm any American troops. We're going to get all our stuff. If you do anything, here's a picture of your house with a target on it.
We're going to blow it up. Yeah.
We're going to blow it up. And that was strength right there. Yeah. Peace through strength, right? So you had two presidents, Biden and Trump, who obviously wanted to end the war in Afghanistan, and it needed to be ended, but Trump was going to go about it a more strategic way, right? And I think it paints a good picture. And so in 24 hours, we should know. 24 hours.
Yeah, if we don't have a decision, we might have a pretty good idea.
The polls,
depending on how they go.
Yeah, the polls will close today in 12 hours and 8 minutes from now.
Yep. So the countdown begins to when we start counting votes. It's going to be interesting, to say the least. I'm curious to see how it all plays out.
My kids are excited. They want to see some of the news coverage tonight.
Okay, yeah.
When they're counting stuff, and I said, "Yeah, I'll show it to you." And so we're excited, but it's going to be neck and neck. I mean, I feel like, and I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I felt like in 2016, we knew that night, didn't we, that Trump won?
If it wasn't that night, it was the next night. I feel like we knew the night of, though.
I felt like we did too, where everyone is saying, and I'm starting to go along with it, we're not going to know tonight, right? And right now I'm looking at a new poll from the Des Moines Register and Mediacom in Iowa suggests that Harris is leading Trump in the state at 47% to 44%, which he's fared well in Iowa in both campaigns that he's done, right? And this one and obviously his previous one. So this would be interesting because Iowa does have sex electoral college votes.
Yeah, it does. And I don't know if that poll is an outlier. I did hear something about that yesterday. And everything that I can see from the Real Clear polling average to 538, Trump is still up in Iowa. Let's see, where's he at? Where's Iowa? I had it pulled up here.
I mean, this also just goes to show, though, that the polls, even though they paint a picture, they don't give you the details. So
yeah, and I do think I heard a quote from somebody, I can't remember who said it, or else I would give them credit, but the polls are not meant to reflect your opinion, they're meant to shape your opinion.
Yeah.
I think they tried to do this in 2016 with Trump and Hillary in Wisconsin. They had Trump down 17 points in Wisconsin, and Trump ended up winning Wisconsin.
Yeah, and I should also note that with that poll, right, Trump did bash it. He says he said it was pretty much stupid, but that it is within the 3-point margin of error, right? So again,
I think that's a mental thing that some of the pollsters are trying to throw out there to make Republicans think that we're down worse than we are.
Yeah. Well, polls are generally written in favor of the left party here.
They are.
But we have in some of these swing states, and this is the latest stuff here. In Nevada, Harris has a 3-point lead. That's just within the margin of error. Meanwhile, though, in Arizona, Trump has a 4-point lead. And that's outside the margin of error.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a good one.
Yeah, and those are interesting because according the 538 poll, according to 538, Trump has a 3-point lead in Nevada. He has a 5-point lead in Arizona, a 2-point lead in Georgia. He's got a 2-point lead in Michigan. He's got a 2-point lead in North Carolina, a 1-point lead in Pennsylvania, a 1-point lead in Wisconsin. Ohio's not necessarily a swing state anymore. It used to be, but Trump's up 7% and 9% in their last two polls. Harris is only up 5% in Virginia, which I feel like is underperforming. Let's see. Minnesota, Harris is only up 2%. So, and this is this is just 538. Those are just state by state polls that we've got out there. But the Real Clear polling average for the national vote, Harris is only up 0.1%. 0.1%, 0.1%.
Yeah. So it is going to be on the edge of your seat all day today. It's
absolutely. Yeah. And Joe Biden's electoral victory in 2020, he won 306 to 232. The states that he won that are currently in play are Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. He won all of those. Mm-hmm. So the 7 swing states that we have right now that we're dealing with is Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada. Right now, Trump has he's got a high likelihood of winning Arizona, Georgia, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. That leaves the 3 blue wall states, which is Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. If Trump wins the 3 states that I just mentioned and picks off one of the blue wall states, he's very likely going to win the election. Okay. 2016, it was kind of a mirrored victory. Trump won 304 to 227. He won Arizona, he won Georgia, he won North Carolina, he won Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. So for Trump to win one of the blue wall states isn't out of the realm of possibility because he won all 3 in 2016.
You know how awesome it would be if he won California, because Biden only won it by, I think it was a 0.03% margin.
Yeah, he didn't win California by as much as he should have.
He barely scratched it. So you know how awesome, and California has a lot of electoral.
55.
Yeah. Imagine if he won that.
If California flips, the election is over.
That would be insane. And no one's really talking about that. I haven't really seen much, but I was like, what happened?
Well, and what's funny is New York is actually a lot closer than it should be. New York is 28 electoral votes.
We might have the opportunity today, because based upon previous elections, and this is an election that's unlike any other election. It really is. There's major reasons for that. But we could potentially see, because we can pretty much lay out which states are going to go which direction, right? Yeah. But everything is so neck and neck right now. We have the potential to see some election history potentially go on. Mm-hmm. I mean, instead of imagine. I mean, if it's called California has gone Trump.
Yeah.
Like, that would be an utter shocker to
everybody. It would be a shock.
And I think, I can't stand the guy, Michael Moore, right? And he's come out and he said, don't worry about this election. He said, Donald Trump is just toast.
Yeah.
Right? But it would be hilarious to see, hey.
Just to give you an idea as to what would happen, I've got this interactive electoral map pulled up right now. And if Trump won California and lost Nevada, Arizona, North Carolina, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, if he lost all of the swing states and won California, he would win 273 to 265.
Wow.
So there's really no, and this is all hypothetical, obviously. The last time California flipped red, I think, was with Reagan in 1980. Mm-hmm.
But Trump if that has been summoning Reaganism.
He has been.
And you never know. California.
He has been. So,
Reagan was also from California.
Right. If California flips red, the election is almost certainly over. There's not really a reality where Trump loses if he wins California. So, because he can lose all of the swing states and still pull out a marginal victory. Yeah. But if Trump pulls California, the likelihood of him losing every single swing state is very, 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 very slim.
Yeah.
So it'll be very interesting. I'm very curious to see how this all shakes out. Yeah, and then we've got the Senate to look at also. There's lots of key Senate races that are going on right now. I believe we've got a Senate race. I had them pulled up here. We've got a Senate race in Wisconsin where the Democrat Baldwin is only up by 1. We've got Pennsylvania. The Democrat is up by 3. We've got Nevada. The Democrat's up by 6 in Nevada. But then we've got Arizona. Kerry Lake is up by 1. We've got Ohio. Bernie Moreno's up by 3 on Brown, the incumbent. We've got Virginia. Let's see. Kane looks like they're up in the polls by about 8. And then Texas, obviously, Ted Cruz is in a tighter than comfortable race, but he's up by 7 right now. But one state that is almost certainly going to flip is Montana. Montana had a Democratic senator in John Tester, and it looks like he is going to be beat out by Sheehy. Looks like Sheehy's up by 11. So it'll be very interesting to see how the Senate races shake out, because if Kamala Harris wins, but she doesn't take the House or the Senate, it's going to be very hard for her to do any severe damage to the country, I think, other than what she will do through executive order.
Well, apparently there's some secret. Have you seen this? With Trump, and if he was to lose, there's a secret that him and the Speaker of the House have. And the Speaker of the House said he would announce after the election. I think in the event if Trump loses. Some secret. And he said,
they announce it if he wins? Because I want to know.
Yeah, he said it's nothing like taking over America or anything like that, but they have a play in their book, I guess, which was interesting, and that's all he divulged on. He didn't go into details about it. So
that is interesting. Very
interesting. But some sort of secret play. I don't know. What that means. So. Well,
I am hoping for a red wave tonight. I hope it is, in the words of Trump, too big to rig.
Well, my wife told me, I didn't know they were doing this. I don't know how big of a movement it was, but I guess somehow they were calling all Christians at 6:00 Eastern Standard Time to pray.
Yep.
So we did last night. We did that, and at 6:00. So we'll find out. And as I've said before, yeah, am I anxious to see who gets it? Yeah, certainly. It's not an anxiousness that I have in the sense of I don't feel like I'll be able to function. I can still function. I'm just nervously excited.
Yep.
And if Kamala wins it, I'll be bummed for about 2 seconds. I mean, it's like, okay. But it's life goes on.
I might be bummed a little longer than 2 seconds.
Yeah,
but
life goes on.
Life goes on.
There's nothing I can do with them. There's nothing I literally can do except.
Yeah, I mean, all we can do is move forward.
Yeah,
that's all we can do.
Trust the Lord. So I'm not gonna sit there, mope and pout, and like, okay, nice, you won. All right, there we go, and we're gonna continue pressing on. And if Trump wins, I'm gonna be super excited, and I'm like, all right, time to move on. Let's go. There's nothing, and I think it's gonna be interesting is that for those that are die-hard Christian nationalists, I don't know how they're going to take it if Trump loses. I really don't know.
There are a lot of people out there that I think are going to see a Kamala Harris victory as the end of life as we know it. Which the possibility of Kamala Harris fundamentally changing the reality of our republic is pretty high. There's lots of radical stuff that she wants to do. But I do think as the Christian, our worldview is such that, yeah, there's our governmental leaders, but, our authority is from Christ, right? Like our allegiance is to the Father. It's not necessarily to our country first.
Yeah.
And I think the assurance that we can have in our relationship with Christ is the only thing that'll get you through what depression might ensue by a Kamala Harris victory.
Yeah.
Because don't get me wrong, a Kamala Harris victory will be very bleak for the country. is just strictly speaking, like on in terms of the United States, it will be very bleak for the country. It will be very bleak for geopolitics. Wars will continue. New wars will start. We will most likely be in World War III within the next 4 years. All of that is obviously less than ideal. But the Christian... Do what?
I said definitely less than that, because the American military has been told to be ready, because China has told their military to be ready by 2027.
Yeah.
That'd be less than 4 years.
Yeah. So, and I think the Christians' response to all of this should just be, okay, well, we find our assurance and we find our peace and we find our comfort in Christ and not in the American political system. But that's not to say that we don't participate in the American political system. There is a brand of Christianity out there that is anti-voting. And I think that's wrong. I do think as a Christian, you should vote. You should get out and be involved in your government. You should influence your government for the kingdom of Christ, right? So even though we don't have an explicit Christian on the ballot, we should go out as Christians and vote for the candidate that is best going to allow the gospel to flourish.
Yeah.
And that is Donald Trump. I don't think there's really an argument to be made that Kamala Harris is the Christian vote. She's made it very clear her opinion on the Christian viewpoints. She's made it very clear on her opinion on moral issues such as immigration and abortion. But I do think the Christian has the responsibility to vote. So today, if you're a Christian and you're listening to this and you have not voted, get out and vote. I would implore you to vote for Donald Trump. I think he is the candidate that will allow the gospel to be perpetuated in the country. He's the only candidate that has any sort of baseline respect for Christian values. And he's the only candidate right now that is pushing individual freedom. He's the only candidate that is pushing a synthesis of ideas. And I do think he's the candidate that will be best for the health of the country. So that's my case for Donald Trump. I would ask that all of you get out and vote today. If you know somebody that hasn't voted, but you have, get them out to vote. If your elderly grandparents haven't gone out and voted, take them out to lunch and go vote afterwards.
Well, we are now 9 minutes into the election day.
Yes, we are.
It has just started, and people are casting their ballots. It's going to be an exciting day. I'm excited to watch. Life goes on, as I said, as normal. I've got things I got to do today. Right? I can't just sit around on the couch and wait till...
Election coverage doesn't start until 6:30 p.m. tonight, so you can get all your work done before then.
I got things to do today, and if we don't know by the time I go to bed tonight, that's fine. I'm going to go to bed, and I will wake up and find out who it is. And,
absolutely.
But ballots are now being casted. It is exciting, as we've constantly reiterated it.
And if we don't have a winner tonight, Brandon, we'll have to, whenever the winner's decided, we'll have to hop on for a few minutes and discuss our reactions to the winner. So
we'll need to definitely do that.
Post-game presser.
And then next week's episode will be in the light of or in the shadow of whichever candidate.
The new president-elect.
Will be president-elect. So fascinating to see.
It'll be very interesting.
I think there's been some good garbage talk on today's episode.
I think there has been. Yeah. I think we could call this the garbage episode. That's what we could call it. But no, today's election day. Get out and vote, everybody. Man, this is a very, very, very important election, and I can't stress that enough. So, Brandon, what's your closing remark to the Christian out there?
If you're the Christian, get out, vote if you haven't already done so. Just vote. Even I know you got to stand in line. You may be standing in line for a couple hours, but vote. As we've outlined in the very beginning of this episode, this is a turning point. This is a direction that as a nation, which path do we choose? And I believe there is very huge spiritual implications out of this. And so that is going to determine the trajectory of our nation here. So get out and vote. And again, at the end of the day, right, if you're sitting there anxiously waiting, right, it's not good for you to be anxiously waiting. The Bible cast all your anxiety upon the Lord, right? So definitely do that. But it also can be understanding if you're anxiously excited. Because I'm anxiously excited, but I'm not anxiously to this where I am.
It's not a negative anxiety.
And it's not a negative anxiety.
It's more of an anticipation.
The anticipation. I'm excited. You know, as I've stated, if Kamala gets it, I'll be bummed for about 2 seconds. I'm going to move on. Right? Yep. And it's because, at least I've come to a point in my walk with the Lord. God is on the throne, and He is ultimately the one in charge. Yes, well, I have to endure outcomes and the effects of people's decisions that are made. Yeah, I'm going to have to. But life goes on. Life goes on. And God
it does.
That
it does.
Yeah.
So, get out and vote if we haven't already said it enough already. Today, it's going to be an interesting day. So just be, and to the Christian out there, be praying for the country today. Just throughout your day, throughout your work day, through whatever you're doing, just pray for the country. Pray that, the best outcome for the country happens. Pray that God's hand is over the election, that we don't have any crazy nonsense going on, and help it to flow as smoothly as possible. But just pray for the health of the country today. That's what I'll be doing today. That's what Brandon will hopefully be doing today. I didn't talk about that with him beforehand, but I assume he'll be praying for the country. You pray, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
No, definitely. We prayed last night at 6:00. We're gonna pray today when we do our devotions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're gonna
absolutely
watch what unfolds.
It'll be good. Hopefully. And given, depending on who wins, we might not have a whole lot to talk about. If Trump wins next week, we may not have to have a strictly political episode. We might talk about it for a little bit, but can maybe carry on to another topic. So we've had a lot of political election talk throughout the life of our podcast. I promise that's not all we talk about.
Yeah, we've got some episode ideas. The episodes that we do want to do. I do want to talk about disinformation and free speech, and that's a huge thing for me.
If Kamala Harris wins, we can talk about that next week.
It'll be like this is our last episode for me.
Right. Oh man, no, it'll be good. And our podcast, the heart behind our podcast is to talk about pressing political, social, and biblical issues from a biblical point of view.
And
do what?
And world events.
Yep. So whether it's domestic politics or geopolitics, we want to talk about all of those, but from the Christian perspective, and mainly talking to the Christian out there, or the interested maybe future Christian out there. So that is primarily the heart behind our episode, or behind our podcast. We've just been engulfed in a very heated election season. So it all comes to a head today, or maybe in 3 to 5 business days. We'll see when we see the result. But either way, before we head out of here, I will remind you all to like and subscribe to the show. Go ahead and share the show. We'd like to get more people listening to it. Our audience has been steadily growing over the life of our podcast. We'd obviously like to keep that moving in the upward direction. So go ahead and share the show if you don't mind. Give us a review. Give us 5 stars if you liked it. If you didn't like it, just don't listen next week. You don't need to bother leaving a review. And so we greatly appreciate all the support. We greatly appreciate everybody out there that already listens to us and already follows us on our social media pages and everything like that. It's very, very, very helpful. And be praying for the country today. It'll be very interesting to see how everything shakes out. So we'll go ahead and catch you all next week.